Hi everyone, Matt Bernier, Dan Illman, taking a look at a Pegasus World Cup contender profile. We're taking a look at Collected for Bob Baffert. This is a horse, Dan. He had a tremendous 2017 campaign, and unfortunately for him, it didn't end really on the right note, but his best performance, other than the Breeders' Cup Classic, was the Pacific Classic. We're going to take a look at that race right now. He defeated Arrowgate. He defeated a nice horse in Accelerate. The question I have for you, is this race good enough to beat Gunrunner?
This race might be good enough. It was a 115 Beyer speed figure. Maybe Arrowgate wasn't the same Arrowgate that we saw in the Dubai World Cup and prior to that big performance, but he still ran hard, did Collected every step of the way. The question is he still this horse? The Breeders' Cup Classic, a perfectly fine effort, Matt, but when you watch the Breeders' Cup Classic, he gave it seemed, his best shot, and he still couldn't get past Gunrunner. Does any observer watch the Breeders' Cup Classic and say, Collected can beat Gunrunner?
And more importantly, even if you thought there was a scenario where if you change a couple little things, he can turn the tables on Gunrunner in a race like the Breeders' Cup Classic, what do you do with the horse coming out of a race and an effort like he ran and put forth in the San Antonio? If you want to say it was a Mike Smith problem, that's entirely fair. But this horse didn't really pick his feet up.
It was a foolish ride from a great rider, considering that there was no pace whatsoever, considering that Southern California racetracks are always kind to speed, considering that on paper, Collected, the odds-on favorite in the San Antonio, was the only speed. For Collected to be last when they go 49 to the half in a mile in a 16th race is stunning, but still, he had to do some running in the stretch for me to even consider him against a horse like Gunrunner in the Pegasus World Cup. And Collected just looked flat. There was no gallop out after the race. I wonder if the Breeders' Cup Classic kind of soured him a bit. He gave Gunrunner his best, and it wasn't good enough.
And we've seen that happen with certain horses in the past. When they give it everything they've got and they still can't get by someone, it cracks them a little bit and maybe they don't ever come back the way that they once were. From a tactical standpoint, this horse, on paper anyway, has beautiful ability. He can go right to the front, he can sit just off. So much is going to come down to the post position draw, which we'll talk about more next week as we get closer. But where ultimately do you think he's positioned?
Gotta be forward. There's no way you're taking him off of the pace like in the San Antonio. The pop and the punch isn't there. Of course, it's a double-edged sword because if you go and Sharp as Tekka goes, all of a sudden Collected is likely involved in a situation where Gunrunner could be just breathing off his neck on the outside. It's a tough situation for Collected. It's not like he's the lone speed as he was arguably in the Pacific Classic. He's going to be pressing a sharper horse in Sharp as Tekka with a horse that might be better Gunrunner off of his neck. He's good enough on his best day. It's up to Baffert to get him back to his best race, and I'm just not sure he's going to do it.
From a numbers standpoint, this is all speculation, but we know Gunrunner is going to be the favorite. You would assume West Coast will be the second choice. Third choice, maybe Collected. I think it's probably Sharp as Tekka. Is there any price that you would be willing to play Collected, knowing what you saw in the San Antonio leaves a bit of a bad taste?
He needs to be 12 to 1 for me, and it's possible. I mean, this is a horse that kind of came out of nowhere to become a national name leading up to the Breeders' Cup Classic, and there are going to be horses in this race that are going to take more money than Collected, but boy, I would need a price, and I just don't see a situation where he's going to get loose or he's going to get lucky. He needs a lot of things to happen in order to win.
We've seen Collected at his best. His best makes him a contender in the Pegasus World Cup. We'll find out if we see his best next week at Gulfstream.